right, so today I got a little different episode. I got Joseph from Joseph Reads Books with me, and we're going to talk about Gateway. And first, I just want to thank you, Joseph, for coming and discussing this book with me. And I'm sure we have a lot of the same subscribers, but for people that are new to you, just you can briefly talk about what you do on your channel and kind of introduce yourself if you'd like.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. Yeah, my channel's Joseph Reads Books, and I mean it's what I do. I've read a lot of older science fiction, and a lot of the stuff I've talked about on there is just vintage science fiction and fantasy, and then every once in a while a strange crime novel from the 1960s. So, yeah, I just cover all sorts of stuff. I think I'm getting more and more eclectic as the channel grows.
Yeah, and this is the first time we talked. You got me to read that book by I forget the title of it, but the main character is Ignatius.
Oh, a Confederacy of Dunces.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I listened to the audiobook and had a good time with that. Never got to talk to you about that, but
I'm glad you enjoyed that because
yeah.
people either love it or hate it.
Yeah, it was fun. So yeah, I like your take on science fiction, and then you kind of have a broad reading. And I used to be big into baseball. I know you talk a lot about baseball books and all that. So
Oh yeah,
think we have a lot
baseball
of
obsessed.
similarities. I was an Oakland A's fan when I really followed baseball.
Oh well, my condolences.
Yeah. Hey, we had some good years during the Billy Bean era for a while there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, like I said, today we're going to be discussing Gateway. It was a while back, Joseph did a book haul and he found, I think, the entire first four novels of the Gateway series or the Heechee Saga in book club editions. And this is a book that's on this list that I'm doing, the masterpieces of science fiction. And I knew I'd been wanting to read it soon. So we started kind of chatting about it and decided we would kind of both read it this month and then discuss it. So we're going to kind of follow like my normal format in a way of going over the book and keeping it spoiler free. But I think it'll be a lot more interesting having someone else's opinion here besides just my love of, goading over something. So, so first off, I just want to mention this book was copyright 1977. Joseph held up the book club edition there, and I have a paperback, which is the first U.S. paperback edition of this one that I found in just amazing shape
It's in really
locally.
good shape.
Yeah. And this book won four awards. I don't know if they call it the Grand Slam of awards, but it did it. It won the 1978 Hugo for Best Novel, the 1978 Nebula Award for Best Novel, the Locust Award, which you don't hear talk about a lot, and the 1978 John W. Campbell Award. So very award-winning book, kind of considered a classic in science fiction. And I guess first we can just kind of give an initial impression over it, and then we'll kind of get into the plot and stuff like that. So, what was your initial impression after reading this one, Joseph?
I I liked it. I don't it just kind of feels dated, I think is the best way to put it. Like I don't have a problem with any of the way the main character acted or anything like that, but like some of it just I kept thinking about newer stuff that covered the same ground, and so I had to like push that out of my head because I've had that problem before. Like a movie example would be when I watched Alien for the first time as like an adult, and I was like, "Wow, it has a lot of tropes in it." And then my buddy was like, "It invented the tropes," and I was like, "Oh, well, yeah, that's a good point actually." And so I really liked a lot of the exploration of like the tech and stuff in here, but then other stuff I just like the whole therapy session stuff. I was just like, I don't it, didn't do it for me, I guess is the best way to put it. But overall, I liked the book.
Yeah. Yeah, now I love this book. I mean, this is like a five-star for me. It had like the ideas. I kind of liked we'll get into a little bit more, but the psychological aspect and how he kind of crafted the novel. My biggest complaint is some of the most interesting things I was waiting for and the novel builds up to he just glances over them and they're over in an instant, you know. So that was kind of I would have liked more of the exploration of some of this, some of the you know, different places these ships went to. But I guess we're getting a little bit in ahead of ourselves here. But yeah, I think it was a fantastic book. I can see why it won all the awards back in the 70s. I
Oh
do,
yeah.
and I do agree with you. Like some of it does feel dated, and but you know, once you put it in context, it doesn't. It's not that bad. So we'll kind of briefly talk about the plot. I'll start off with like what the Earth is like in this book when we start off. Like it's kind of a dystopia in a way. There's lack of resources. Our main character, who goes by many names, Robinette, Rob, Bob, I guess we could call him Rob to make it easy. But he's like working in these mines in Wyoming and trying to grow food for most of the population. And it's just a real bleak setting. And he ends up winning a lottery and he gets the chance to use that money to go up to Gateway. And that's like the main concept and idea of this book. So maybe you could talk about what Gateway is, Joseph.
Uh, Gateway is an ancient. It's like a. Isn't it basically just like a collection of ancient alien tech that we found, and like it involves like ships. Yeah,
Yep.
it's hollowed out like asteroid, right?
Yep.
And we find all these ships and they're like, hey, what do these buttons do? And then and then people get launched off and then sometimes they come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
So it's
also,
like it's almost like he won the lottery to get up and try to make a better life for himself. And these people that come back, they can make tons of money by salvaging ancient tech from this alien race called the Heechee. And but it's even up there, it's a gamble, right? Like you said, you may or may not come back from these missions.
yeah, I think that shows kind of how impoverished humanity is, that these people are like, oh, my only way out is to gamble my life away.
Exactly. And, you know, a lot of the negative comments I got on this seem to revolve around some of the stuff going on. I mean, on this station, there's like gambling, excessive alcohol and drug use. Everyone's sleeping with each other. But I mean, it does seem kind of realistic the way he paints this picture of this desperation. And you're like, I might die tomorrow on this mission, so might as well enjoy myself.
Yeah, and I just realized it because they call themselves prospectors. I mean, this is a gold rush boomtown. So
Yep.
that's why there's all this vice and everything. It's just the science fiction equivalent of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So our main character, Rob, he gets to go up there and, you know, I guess another thing to bring up is how this book was kind of crafted or how the narration went. And like almost every other chapter, I believe, you're kind of well into the future when Rob is older. He had come back from some of these missions. He's rich, so you know he lived through whatever he's gonna experience out there, and you know he came back with a lot of money, and he's having these psychological sessions with this a artificial intelligence robot shrink, right? And I think he calls him Siegfried von Shrink is the nickname he gives this shrink. And it was I think those were interesting. It was a way to build the suspense of the novel because it gives away a lot of the plot in the book because you know he makes it, you know he's rich, you know whatever missions he went on, he was successful. But throughout the other chapters, when he's actually going through the motions out there at Gateway, you're kind of wondering how this is all going to play out.
Yeah, I like that. I like the way it's set up that you already know he survives, but then you have this other mystery that he's going through, which is like the trauma, and you're like, well, what caused the trauma? And he does do a really good job of teasing that throughout the book. I remember even like in the first third of the book, he mentions like my first trip was my first trip went okay, but it was the third one that was the bad one. And then like he doesn't talk about it again, and then you find out at the end, of course, like about the rest of it. But yeah, I just thought that was really interesting that he teases it through the whole story and kind of keeps you glued to the page.
Yeah, for sure. And like as I was reading, you're getting close to the end, going, when's this third mission going to happen? Because
Yep.
everything kind of comes to a head really quickly at the end. It kind of resolves itself in a way. But yeah, another cool thing I want to talk about with these. So they found this ancient Heechee tech, with these spaceships. And there's like spaceships that fit one person, three people, or five people. So people are kind of teaming up on this in this asteroid and trying to decide if they want to go with other people, and they're building alliances. And once they decide to go, they launch these things out there. And there's a way in the ship to tell when you've kind of reached the halfway point. The ship travels faster than the speed of light, and there's this indication that you're starting to slow down. So that point, you're about a quarter of the way through your mission, because you got to go the rest of the way out, and then you got to turn around and come back. And there's times when some of these people in these ships realize that they don't have enough supplies to make it back. And I mean, there's some grim parts where people are drawing straws to kill themselves, or have to commit suicide, or they eject themselves out of these ships so that the rest of the people can survive. I mean, it's a very bleak book at times. So,
Y-
yeah.
Yeah, it is definitely bleak at points. I really like that too. Like I like that they're showing like the desperation of these people that they're willing to do this, and then the desperation of the people that are out there that want to come back. And I also like the like sense of community you get between all these prospectors. Like they've got this shared occupation that they know is risky. And the other thing is I like the way they kind of pair off when they're going out. Like everyone's kind of got like, oh well, I go with these people or this person, or that kind of thing. I like that too.
Yeah. Yeah, he also, like, when Rob first shows up on the asteroid, everything's new, and you as a reader, everything's new. But after a couple missions and he comes back, it's like he's excited, like, what's been going on while I was gone? And you as the reader too are familiar with everything. And I think he wrote that part of it really well. You understand the intricacies of this asteroid and this whole little culture that's going on there as you progress through the book. I think he did that really well too.
Yeah, definitely.
And then also throughout the book, there's all these little snippets of, you name it. They're just kind of broken up in the book, little boxed out sections of travel logs, rules on the space station. There's classified ads that he added, and it kind of just, I think, helps you gives you a good context of what life is kind of like on this asteroid.
Yeah, I really liked those a lot. Like I think it's really cool. Like I did the book pretty much exclusively on audio, and the narrator does an okay job of like letting you know when it's like an ad or something, but they're even better like looking at the page.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that's, I don't want to go, of course, into spoilers or anything. I feel like, to me, the ending was one of those endings that's a little open-ended, maybe a lot open-ended. It does kind of make me want to read the sequel. If you know how that gateway ends and what happens at the end, and then if you look at the title of the next book, I'm hoping we get some resolution, or a little bit more resolution. And it does really kind of make me want to read the sequels, but I guess
Yeah,
we'll.
I think I will give the sequel a chance. I when I finished it, I was like, well, I don't know. And then I read the little teaser in the dust jacket for the sequel, and I'm like, okay, I think I do want to know what's going on.
I have heard a lot of people say that the sequels aren't as good as the original, but I'm willing to give them a shot. And I liked Gateway so much, if even if it doesn't live up to that, I think it'll still be enjoyable for me. So,
Yeah.
well, is there
It was,
anything else you wanted to talk about the plot or anything like that?
some of the stuff that's in it, nothing, no spoilers, but it covers a lot of ground that a lot of other books of its era, and especially just like a decade later, do. Like, it has some things that I don't like. Hypnosis stuff just annoys me because it's such a pseudoscience, and it's like the same thing with like other books that have a ton of just like weird hip. It's mostly the hypnosis that bothered me. And the other thing is I do like the book in spite of it doing one of the things that I can't stand, which is the present and then flashback and then present and then flashback. Like, I don't know what it is. It just happened a couple years ago, but it's like a narrative style that just drives me nuts now. But I did like it in here in spite of that bugbear of mine. And I just really like how he took pretty much everything you see in other books of that era and just did a really good job with it. Like, of course, the hypnosis stuff, and then just the general tech that you see in books around that time. But he did really cool stuff too. Like you said, the artificial intelligence program that was his therapist. That's super cool. And then I don't think this isn't a spoiler, but he talks about like healthcare in a society where like people mine for food and stuff, and like no one has money, and that but if you can afford healthcare, then you can essentially live significantly longer. And there's like a lump sum payment of, hey, we'll take care of you forever, but it happens to be an exorbitant amount of money. And
Yeah,
I
and
just
a lot of the people going on these missions, that's one of their goals, to make enough to have that health care for life and go back and like sit on a beach somewhere, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
really interesting. Who'd have thought people would have jobs for healthcare?
Yeah, he did. And I was trying to think, like, there's a lot of space opera elements to this book, but I wouldn't call it a true space opera. It's almost some weird category of like psychological science fiction that does
Yeah.
have a lot of, aliens and a lot of the tropes we're normally used to and all that, but just kind of unique, I guess, especially for its time.
Yeah, especially, yeah, I think that's probably why it won the awards it did, because of the way he tells this story. It's so original for the time. Like, the closest thing to it that I can think of is 10 years newer than it, and that's Use of Weapons by Ian M. Banks. Like, it has like a big psychological aspect to it like this. And so, yeah, he's definitely ahead of his time with the way he was telling this story.
Yeah, and then I was when you get out to this asteroid and you see how I think there was like 1,000 ships, and they were kind of experimenting with different ships and launching off into different places of the galaxy. And I kept thinking about The Expanse. I read that whole series a couple years ago, and I looked it up, and sure enough, the authors there said that this was a big influence on their idea for what happens in that book without spoiling it too much. But there's a similar kind of concept. But
Yeah. Yeah, well, I definitely see it.
yeah, the and I don't think it's really a spoiler, but in theirs, it's almost like these, wormholes that just instantly take you to these other areas of the galaxy. But I really liked this idea that he had, where you actually had to spend the time, even though you're going faster than light. There was, I think it was, most of these trips lasted for a couple months round trip, or somewhere around a month to 2 months to make the round trip voyage. So
Yeah, that is terrifying to think about. Like, when he started explaining the way people did that, and it's like, yeah, you hit the go button and then you might come back.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Yeah. So, so yeah, I think we covered everything. I think we discussed kind of what we liked and didn't. I don't know if there's any other pros or cons you want to go over. I think we um, did a little bit more of an organic review than my kind of standard one, and I really like this. So, anything else you want to add about the book or your experience reading it?
No, I think we're good. I overall I liked it. It didn't blow me away like it blew you away, but I still liked it.
Yeah, and I guess another thing, there's kind of a warning to some people. This main character at times he's just a horrible, horrible person, and he does some really bad things and does some bad things to some women. And so, if you're sensitive to those kind of things, I could see how this book would really turn you off. I know that there's probably a group of people that completely hate this book, and it's probably for some of those reasons. But if you can see what Pohl was trying to do with this one, I think there's a lot to like about it. And like I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah, so there's this whole series, there's four main books apparently that he wrote. And it's funny because there's Gateway and then Beyond the Blue, Event Horizon. And then what's funny is on my paperback here of Heechee Rendezvous, it says the final gripping tale. And then it's like, wait, nope, we're gonna do one more. The Annals of Heechee, the real final. And then later, like many years later, he wrote this book, The Boy Who Would Live Forever. I think he wrote this in like 2004, and I believe it's sort of loosely tied. Yeah, 2004. So I'm at least intrigued enough to read the next book and then kind of take it book by book, I think.
Yeah, I'll probably end up doing the same. Like I have those first four, and so if as long as Beyond the Blue Event Horizon is still entertaining enough, I'll definitely keep going.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I kind of have this completionist mentality sometimes where I got to run it all the way through, even if I suffer through it. But at least these books are kind of short enough. I think Gateway was around 275 pages, and it was, there was a little bit of confusing stuff, but it read really fast and really easy for me. I never got hung up. It's not one of these super dense, books that you have to stop and think about it. Like you can just kind of plow through it, or I did anyways.
Yeah, I did the same. Like I said, I did audio and I listened to it in a day. I just started it and then it just played because I have a mind-numbing job where I can listen to audiobooks and it doesn't affect
Oh,
my
nice.
comprehension or my work. So that's usually when I'm crushing books.
Oh, that's convenient. All right. Well, thanks. This was a lot of fun, Joseph.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we should do this again sometime.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And if anybody hasn't, go check out Joseph's channel. He has great videos, covers all kinds of different books, but I
To
mainly,
promote
what's that?
to promote something that your watchers would be interested in, I just recently ranked the top 50 most popular science fiction books on Goodreads. Like I tier ranked them because I'd read 43 of the 50. So then the seven I hadn't read, I rank based on how likely I am to read them. So
Yeah, that's a great video. You should definitely check that out. All right. Well, thanks again, Joseph. And I
yeah,
guess we'll
thank you.
talk to you soon.